All right, let's dive right in. The Berlin International Film Festival, or as it's affectionately known to pretty much everyone, the Berlinale, is easily one of the world's most prestigious cultural events. But its story? Well, it's actually a pretty dramatic one, full of crisis, geopolitical tension, and a radical rebirth that forever changed the vanguard of avant-garde cinema. Today, we're going to track how this massive event, born straight out of post-war chaos, evolved through some really heavy controversy into a relentless champion for the art of film.
But before we rewind to those fraught early days of the Cold War, let's just get a sense of the sheer modern scale of this thing. 325,000. That is how many public tickets were sold in 2020 alone. That number makes the Berlinale the absolute largest film festival in the world based on actual public attendance. So we aren't just talking about a closed-door exclusive industry event, it's a massive citywide cultural phenomenon that draws tens of thousands of film lovers right into Berlin's cinemas every single year.
Which brings us to Section 1. The world's biggest film festival.
Because as much as it's a celebration for the public, this festival really operates as a critical hub for the global film business. It operates on a truly monumental scale. Berlin sits proudly as one of Europe's big three film festivals, right up there alongside Venice and Cannes. Every February, they screen roughly 400 films across a bunch of venues, mostly centered around Potsdamer Platz. But behind the scenes, at the European film market running at the exact same time, you've got almost 16,000 film industry pros, producers, financiers, buyers, you name it, flying in from 130 different countries. It is just an absolute powerhouse of the international film circuit.
So how did it start? Section 2. Born in the Cold War.
To figure out how the Berlinale grew into this massive powerhouse, we have to look back at its highly unlikely origins during a period of really intense geopolitical tension. Picture this. It's 1950. Berlin is a divided city, and an American film officer named Oscar Marte formally pitches the idea of a film festival. Just a year later, the inaugural festival actually opens, kicking off with none other than Alfred Hitchcock's Rebecca. Initially, the top prizes, the famous Golden Bears, were decided by a West German panel, and then later by the audience. It wasn't until 1956 that formal accreditation allowed the Golden Bear to be awarded by an international jury, which really cemented its global status.
Now, here's a completely fascinating piece of historical irony. The earliest iterations of this massive artistic festival, they were actually funded and supported by the American military administration. They provided the crucial loans to get the whole thing off the ground. And you might be wondering, why? Well, in 1951, West Berlin was a democratic island entirely surrounded by the Soviet bloc. So the festival was intentionally designed as a showcase of the free world, essentially a soft power geopolitical tool to project Western cultural vitality right at the absolute peak of the Cold War.
But those tensions couldn't stay hidden forever. Section 3. The Scandal of 1970.
Those deep, underlying geopolitical pressures eventually boiled over. 2 decades in, the political realities of the world erupted into this massive controversy that very nearly destroyed the entire event. During the 20th edition in 1970, they screened a film by Michael Verhoeven called OK. It was an intensely political, anti-war piece depicting the actions of American soldiers in Vietnam. And the screening of this film caused an absolutely unprecedented uproar among the jury, effectively fracturing the festival right down the middle.
What we're looking at here is a fundamental clash of ideals. On one side, you have the jury head, American director George Stevens. He's relying strictly on the festival's official guidelines, arguing that a festival's core role is to contribute to better understanding between nations, and he felt this film violated that by being overtly anti-American. On the flip side, the filmmaker, Michael Verhoeven, staunchly defended his artistic expression. He argued he hadn't made an anti-American film at all, pointing out that a massive portion of the American public itself was against the war. It was the ultimate clash. Institutional guidelines versus provocative artistic expression.
And this single conflict triggered a completely devastating domino effect. First, the jury votes 7-2 to officially yank the film from the competition. Next, this sparks absolute outrage among other filmmakers who immediately cry censorship and start withdrawing their own films in solidarity. And finally, total collapse. The jury disbanded, the competition was fully suspended, and for the very first time, 0 awards were given out that year. The Berlinale was completely paralyzed. But from the ashes of that paralysis came something new. Section 4, the Forum of New Cinema. You see, that total collapse in 1970 didn't spell the end of the Berlinale. Instead, it acted as a catalyst for a really powerful structural rebirth. By 1971, the festival took on a dual identity. The main competition kept the glamour, the red carpets, and the pursuit of the golden bears. But they added a new section, the International Forum of New Cinema, now just known as the Forum, which provided this gritty, boundary-pushing contrast. It focused entirely on avant-garde works, intense socio-artistic discourse, and it became the home for independent juries, like the Caligari Film Prize and eventually the groundbreaking Teddy Award for Queer Cinema.
The Forum was founded by Ulrich and Erika Grigor, and their goal was literally to shake up the traditional cinematic canon. They completely flipped the script on conventional categories. Instead of worrying about what would sell, they championed early, challenging works by legendary directors like Chantal Akerman and Ken Loach. The focus shifted far away from the red carpet and right into deep, discursive, and sometimes incredibly heated audience discussions right after the screenings.
Now think about this number, 10,000. That is the staggering number of films currently preserved in the Arsenal's living archive in Berlin. From the very beginning, the Forum dedicated itself not just to screening these unconventional films from around the globe, but to subtitling them, distributing them, and physically saving them. It's a living archive that represents a really tangible legacy of the Forum's commitment to protecting marginalized experimental and global film history.
And the innovation definitely didn't stop there. Section 5, expanding cinema's boundaries.
As we hurtled into the 21st century, art and technology were rapidly evolving, and the Berlinale realized it needed to push its boundaries way beyond the silver screen. I mean, with the rise of digital cameras and the internet, the medium of film was bleeding into all these other art forms. So, in 2006, they created a new section called Forum Expanded. This boldly brought in visual art, theater, live performance, music, and gallery installations to totally challenge our basic understanding of what a film can actually be today.
The overarching philosophy here is to treat the Forum as a true laboratory or a workshop for artistic experimentation. The focus is completely divorced from commercial potential, which is pretty rare, right? When the selection committees choose a piece, they aren't asking if it's going to be a blockbuster. They're asking what aesthetic, social, or political stance the filmmaker is taking, and how it interacts with the world around us.
So, as we wrap up this explainer on the Berlinale's incredible evolution, literally from a Cold War geopolitical project to this daring laboratory for the world's most boundary-pushing artists, I want to leave you with a thought. Think about your own viewing habits. How does the media you consume challenge your own worldview and test the boundaries of convention? Because art absolutely has the power to shape our realities, just as reality shapes our art. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep watching, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.